A winter night thick with silence. Snowflakes drifted beneath street lamps, glowing like tiny sparks against the frozen darkness. It was February 28, 1986, the night Sweden's Prime Minister Olof Palme stepped into history and death. The man who would change a nation's destiny wasn't a trained assassin. He wasn't a political rival or a foreign spy. He was, by all appearances, just an ordinary man with a paper bag in his hand. A man known to a few as Stig Engström. To the world, he would become the shadowy figure called the Skandia Man. Olof Palme, loved by some and hated by others, walked home with his wife Lisbeth after a late-night movie. No bodyguards, no official car. The Prime Minister of Sweden strolled casually down Sveavägen Street, as if his country were immune to the violence that plagued the rest of the world. At 11:21 p.m., a single shot cracked the icy air. Then another. Olof Palme collapsed into a pool of his own blood. Lisbeth screamed into the night. Witnesses turned. People ran. And among the chaos, a thin, bespectacled man in a dark overcoat lingered. He claimed he tried to help. He claimed he saw nothing. He claimed everything and nothing at all. That man was Stig Engström, an employee of the nearby Skandia insurance company. A man who would later become the center of a theory too unsettling for many to accept. Who was Stig Engström? On paper, he was painfully ordinary. A 52-year-old graphic designer, divorced, a man whose colleagues described him as eager for attention, chatty, and often overlooked. He loved routines, clocking in and out of work, always ready with a story no one asked to hear. But Stig carried something else inside him, a simmering resentment, a hunger to be noticed. He lived in the shadow of Sweden's great social experiment, a country that prided itself on equality and collective success. And yet, men like Stig felt invisible. While Palme stood for progress and unity, Stig quietly fumed at the changes reshaping his country. The Prime Minister embodied everything he believed was stealing Sweden from men like him. After the murder, Stig's actions were curious. He didn't run home. Instead, he hovered at the crime scene. He spoke with police. He even gave interviews to the press. He insisted he had valuable information. He claimed he saw the killer escape. But every time he spoke, details shifted. Times didn't match. Descriptions conflicted. Witnesses who might have confirmed his story couldn't. Why'd he linger? Why insert himself so boldly into the heart of the investigation? Unless he wanted to control the narrative. Detectives chalked him up as a harmless eccentric, a man desperate for attention. They let him walk. The assassination of Olof Palme triggered the largest manhunt in Swedish history. Decades passed. Suspects came and went. Political extremists, foreign agents, even the Kurdish separatist group PKK. None of them fit perfectly. Yet, through it all, one figure remained curiously close to the crime, yet just out of reach. The Skandia Man journalists and amateur sleuths began to dig. They noticed that Stig's timeline matched the killer's escape route. They found inconsistencies in his alibi. They unearthed whispers of political bitterness, small but sharp enough to cut. Still, evidence was thin, and Stig, he lived quietly, fading into the background, until his death in 2000. No confession, no trial. In 2020, 34 years after the murder, Swedish prosecutors stunned the world. They named Stig Engström, the Skandia Man, as their prime suspect. He was, they said, the most logical killer, the man with motive, means, and opportunity. But there was a cruel twist. Stig was already dead. There would be no arrest, no courtroom drama, no definitive proof. The case was closed, but not solved. Why would a middle-aged office worker assassinate a prime minister? Theories abound. Some point to political hatred. Stig loathed Palme's leftist policies and the social changes they represented. Others suggest a craving for recognition, a desperate attempt to write his name into history. Perhaps it was both. Imagine the psychology. A man who felt invisible in life suddenly holding the power to stop a nation in its tracks. To take down a leader with one pull of a trigger. To make the world notice. It wasn't money. It wasn't espionage. It was the cold, burning desire to matter. And isn't that the most terrifying motive of all? Not ideology, not revenge, but the need to be seen. Here is where the story twists the knife. If Stig truly killed Olof Palme to be remembered, he succeeded, but only in death. For years, police dismissed him as a talkative bystander. He died alone, uncelebrated, his life a footnote. Then, decades later, his name exploded across headlines. His face became synonymous with Sweden's greatest political crime. The man desperate for recognition received it, but only when he could no longer bask in its dark glory. The world finally saw him, but he never saw the world looking back. The Skandia Man story forces a question we don't like to ask. How many people walk among us, quietly starving for acknowledgement? How many invisible lives burn with resentment, waiting for a spark? Stig Engström wasn't a trained killer. He was an office worker with a grudge, and that made him far more dangerous. Because when a person feels unseen long enough, they can convince themselves that violence is the only way to be heard. The assassination of Olof Palme was not only a political tragedy. History isn't always shaped by the powerful. Sometimes it's twisted by the ordinary, by a single unnoticed soul who refuses to stay invisible. The lesson is clear. See the people around you. Listen to the quiet ones. Recognize the humanity of those who feel forgotten. Because the most frightening killers are not monsters from the shadows. They're the neighbors we never really see. On that cold February night, a man the world barely noticed changed history with 2 gunshots. Olof Palme's vision for Sweden died on the sidewalk. And Stig Engström, the Skandia Man, finally found the recognition he craved. But in the cruelest twist of fate, it came too late for him to enjoy, and too late for a nation that still aches for answers. Sometimes the greatest danger is not the enemy we fear, but the loneliness we ignore. Subscribe for more gripping, true crime stories and historical mysteries. Like and share if you believe history still holds secrets. Comment below what you think really happened on that cold February night.